Hi, this is Marla Phillips, and I'm providing this recording as a training module for how the predictive product quality and business continuity system works. So I want to start off with the credibility of the system, and the system is based on the Schelling point work that was done that uses complex algorithms that are developed from the Nobel Prize winning work of Thomas P. Schelling, and it's based on the area of game theory. Schelling point has been used by highly classified government agencies, such as the CIA, which demonstrates the level of data security. I know that Michael Taylor likens the security to that of Amazon and other trusted and well-used sources. So the areas to measure were developed by Xavier University, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Schelling Point with industry thought leaders using a very rigorous methodology, and everything was orthogonally verified throughout the process, every step of the way. We wanted to make sure that we weren't getting stuck in groupthink or that it wasn't verified in some way as being meaningful. So I'll walk through with you how we came up with the action items that we measure and give you the background on I guess, the process that we followed. So, and then in the end, I'll show you, we used two different pilot studies. One, the first one that involved 82 82 industry members, was to basically verify the themes that we came up with. There were three themes that kind of emerged out of our thought leaders as it relates to the critical parts that link what you see in action in a company to its commitment to quality. And then the second pilot study of 489 industry members was to allow those people to actually go through and assess their organizations against the action items that we've identified. So I'll share those findings with you as well. So the power of the system, this proven system gives an organization quantifiable data that it has never had before, and that's very powerful. It identifies areas of unknown risks and vulnerability, and the risks are unknown because they have not caused failure yet, and that's where the name predictive product quality comes from. These risks are not measured by conventional metrics that are used by industry, and I think if you look at predictive product quality and business continuity, a lot of it is grounded in the culture of an organization, and most metrics that are tracked today in industry do not measure a company's culture. And so the power of this system is we get to putting our finger on the pulse of how the company operates and how committed are they to that culture of quality, which obviously then impacts the predictive nature that you would have on product quality failure and risks, and any potential risks that you have to the continuity of your business. Pre-failure knowledge, of course, arms industry with predictive information, and then actionable, quantifiable knowledge enables the organization to proactively protect its assets. So it's interesting that we link both the product quality and the business continuity through in the same tool, whereas a lot of people see that those are a conflict of interest. Like, how could you possibly be interested in business if you're focusing on quality? Well, for those of us who have been around for a while in the industry, we fully recognize that quality can completely drive the business. And if quality can be defined as doing things right first time, then that is everything that you would want in a business. So they're definitely linked together, and I think the foundation of it is grounded in the commitment to a culture of quality. So the system is instantly scalable from less than 10 employees to hundreds of thousands of employees. You do want to have a significant number of employees to basically say that what is being discussed or the findings are, I guess, verified. You don't want to just have a couple of people included in this, but it is capable of being conducted with less than 10 employees. It's just more advisable that you would do more than 10. And then just to give you an idea of the power of the system, thousands of companies can be assessed simultaneously. So if you have a large company with hundreds of thousands of employees, there's no danger that could not be supported at any given time. The system involves minimal industry resources and time, and it only takes an employee a total of 15 minutes to complete a two-step virtual interview process. And those are very important words. This is not a survey. It is a virtual interview process, and we want it to be virtual instead of face-to-face for reasons that I'll explain in a little bit. Companies can involve thousands of employees simultaneously, thus ensuring everyone's voice is heard and understood. You don't want just a particular level of management or a type of demographic from your company. You want to have everyone's voice heard, because people who are in the operation areas, those are the ones who are seeing things and how they're operating. And perhaps senior management intended something to trickle down in a certain way, and it never happened that way. So you really want to make sure that you're looking at this from all perspectives. Again, it creates a unique virtual interview discussion. It uses complex algorithms to assess the degree of like-mindedness and endorsement around measurable actions. And so this is where it definitely gets away from being a survey. So we have the virtual dialogue going on, the virtual interview process, and it's measuring the degree of like-mindedness and endorsement. And I'll explain what those mean in a few minutes. And then a third step can be added to require employees to post verifiable evidence to support their views, which can also support a type of a certification audit or like a maturity assessment even of a company. So again, this would be important to make sure that what employees are saying is actually backed by something. And then I'll explain in a few minutes as well as how that's also meaningful for other employees to understand why someone said what they said. So it also immediately identifies specific actionable gaps such that a focused mitigation plan can be implemented. And so this is immediate ROI for the company involved. And then it even goes beyond that in a few steps that I'll show that really put this on a mitigation roadmap for an organization. It generates big data. So if you have a company with many, many plant sites, and perhaps they even look at assessing themselves over a course of a couple of years, you can really start to generate some big data pretty quickly. It also includes cluster analyses around an unlimited set of demographics. So this is beneficial to the company involved as they can establish their own demographics through which to compare and contrast like-mindedness. And it's been beneficial to the assessors to identify industry-wide trends. But as far as the first bullet, that's important to note. If you're working with a company and they want to know, how many people who have been in industry for 6.2 years and have been in the quality organization, then regulatory affairs, and have been in plant sites in Europe, how do they feel about something? So they can pose the demographic questions at the beginning of this assessment in a way that includes the demographics that they want. So it can be completely tailored in that way. So basically, if you use the XAVIER Schelling Point Predictive Product Quality and Business Continuity System to quantitatively measure the strength of an organization's commitment to quality, you can then predictively identify risks to product quality and business continuity. So that's basically the power of the system. That's the goal. That's where this is headed. So how does the assessment work? So again, I mentioned a two-step virtual interview process. If you think about it as every employee is asked their opinion as to what level they agree a certain action is in place and is effective within their organization, then first of all, we want to stress that this is an action they can see. So it's not guessing or how do you feel about something. It is, do you see this in action? And I'll explain why that's important in a minute as well. The responses remain anonymous, so that the employees can respond without fear of recrimination. And this is important. If you had everyone in a room and did a face-to-face interview process, there are guarded responses that occur, or if other people in the room are responding one way, they tend to respond that way just to not be out in left field. And then certainly if the boss is in the room, everyone wants to make sure that they're understanding what the boss wants to hear, that kind of thing. So the fact that this is virtual and remains anonymous gives you more, plain, direct answers. The Schelling Point software identifies areas of unusual misalignment. So here's where the interview process starts to take place as well. So the respondent is asked to virtually and anonymously explain why they responded the way they did. Once the respondents are aware of rationale, they are allowed to change their responses because they have misunderstood something or were unaware of information that others knew. So basically, the first step is you give your opinion, as I described in number 1. Then the system comes back using artificial intelligence to pick up on some key differences and says, okay, Marla, for some reason you responded this way to something. Can you explain why you did? And it's not saying that I'm wrong. It's just asking me to explain why I did, because perhaps my answer was different from everyone else's or different enough. And I could say, well, I know we didn't do that because I have the document right here saying that we didn't do it. And everyone else could see the rationale that I posted, and they could say, oh gosh, I didn't realize it wasn't done. I thought it had been done. I would like to change my answer to say, no, we are not doing that. And so it's not wishy-washy as it first might seem, where we can say you can change your answer. But what it does, it weeds out the misunderstandings, so that at the end of this assessment, you're really looking at things where there's misalignment and things are not being done as effectively as they could be within the organization. So this 2-step virtual interview process is very powerful. You can't do this through a survey, and you can't do it face-to-face. So I think those are 2 really important things to understand. So then how do you measure the alignment? So alignment is the measurement of the degree of like-mindedness. So in any group, in every group that you have, when Michael Taylor has used the Schelling point methodology, so several hundred organizations, the initial alignment index has always been anywhere between 44 and 83, where 0 alignment is complete disagreement about the subject. No one agrees about anything. 100 is basically everyone is completely like-minded. Everyone feels the same way about whatever it is you're discussing. So we want to know what the degree of like-mindedness is. So how aligned are you around something? And this is something that's important. Michael will often say that if you were to ask a group a question, most senior leaders would say, do you agree? And then everyone nods their heads, yes, we agree. The question to really ask is, how aligned are we that this is the correct pathway to go forward with, or whatever the question is. So how aligned are we? Not do you agree? So this measurement of alignment is very powerful, and again, is not done by a survey, and it's not done face-to-face. So what is measured? This shows you just a snapshot of what a screenshot would look like out of the system, and the colors are very important. On the left side of the scale to the right of the screen, you're actually looking at that alignment, and the alignment can be anywhere from 0 to 100, which I just described on the previous slide. The other aspect that goes along with this is the sentiment. Sentiment can go from negative 100 to positive 100. So, for example, if you had 100 on the alignment, where, up at the top where it shows green, so that means that 100% of the people involved feel this way. So it is, the degree of like-mindedness, we are completely aligned, that everyone agrees. And what they agree to, if you can see to the right of that top bar is, first of all, the bar is light brown, and the score on the right is 20. So the sentiment, which can go from negative 100 to positive 100, is only 20. So you have 100% alignment that, yeah, we kind of do this. So it's not strong, yes, we absolutely do it, where that score on the right-hand side would be a plus 100. But everyone is saying, yeah, we kind of do it. And the question is that Device One, meaning the company named Device One, is actually spending the budget it allocates to quality improvement. So you have 100% of the people saying, yeah, we kind of do, or for the most part. And then as you can see down the column, you have different scores going down the left for alignment and down the right for sentiment. And so as the colors become light blue, a little bit darker blue, and dark blue, that indicates that you're getting into the sentiment index of the negatives. So, for example, you could have an alignment of 100 and a sentiment of negative 100 that we all agree that we are absolutely not doing that. And then you have every variation in between. So you can visually see as just looking at the colors, that the top bar has, the light brown. Dark brown is, the 100. Yes, we all agree that this is being done. Light brown gets to the kind of, yeah, well, we kind of are. You get into the light blues of, well, maybe not really, and to the dark blues of, no, we're definitely not. So you can visually see what's going on here. So that's very powerful to have both of those scores helping you to understand what the actual response is. So if I take one down at the bottom then, so you have the alignment index is 43. So we're kind of middle of the road, not really on, what we all think. And the sentiment is only at 6. So you can see we have some people saying, yes, we absolutely do it. You actually have a dark brown there. Yes, we actually do it. Absolutely do it. And then you have a dark blue there saying we absolutely do not do it. And then every variation in between. So the question actually, if you look over to the left, is our leadership team basically are familiar enough with the everyday operations in my area to know the challenges, needs that have been expressed, and areas of opportunity for improvement. Now, this is an interesting question because, your leadership, whoever that is, they are people, they are individuals. And so if your leader came out of the quality organization and you're in the quality organization, then you're probably one of those people that said, yes, absolutely, my leader understands what I'm doing. If your leader came out of quality and you're talking about IT, chances are you would say, no way, they have absolutely no idea what's going on in my world. So this is very powerful to help you to start understanding what's going on and then to put the right mitigation in place. Okay, so that was long-winded on this, but it's very powerful, and a lot of decisions can be made from this, and you can draw out a lot of conclusions from it as well. So I'm not going to go through this as much, but basically the predictive product quality and business continuity system takes you from the far left where it's talking about, okay, tell me, to what level do you agree that these actions are in place? And so you have the 26 opinions that everyone is scoring. It might come back and say, can you provide your rationale in that second block? And then you have what you see below is the brown and blue bars that we just saw in the previous slide. And then from that, you can see some of the points where everyone agrees. So they are endorsed assumptions. Everyone agrees that this is happening. So you can say everyone agrees, and so we don't need to do anything about it, or everyone agrees, and because they agree on all of this, we actually have to take action because we're not doing something well. So you can look at the responses and break out which ones do we all agree that everything's perfect and they're endorsed, which ones do we agree are not being done well, and then you start using the system to take those remaining action items and put them on the roadmap, which is shown on the bottom right. So it helps you walk through with the client what they want to prioritize and what they want to mitigate. And the system walks through and provides the evidence that was given in the earlier stages, so then that team, whether it's a team of leaders or a cross-functional team or whatever it is, can make the best decision for their organization. You put it on a roadmap, and which is scheduled out by time. So, within the first year, or the second year, or within the first 3 months, whatever the time frame is, it's literally a roadmap for their mitigation. Okay, so how did we come up with the 26 action items that we asked? We first got a group of thought leaders together, and some of these thought leaders actually were called in to provide, expertise to people like Janet Woodcock and Cedar, and was invited in to actually have a meeting with her to explain how culture works and what you would see in action. So these are true thought leaders. We asked them, if you walked into a company today, what would you have to see in action? So that's key. What would you have to see in action to know that company has a strong commitment to quality? And so on the far left, what you can see is we had 110 opinions from those 8 thought leaders. This is not unusual to have that many opinions generated. But we wanted to figure out, well, where are we aligned and where are we not aligned? So we actually used the Shelling Point software with these 8 thought leaders and their 110 opinions to kind of vet out what are we aligned on and what are we not aligned on. So we filtered the opinions down to 59 opinions. Then we put those into a cause and effect analysis versus some key criteria that we thought were important to this, and came down to 28 opinions from the 59. We then did an influence map to see how many of those were dependent on the others and which ones were really driving the others. And that helped us to identify three root drivers. We put those 3 root drivers in a pilot study with 82 industry members from the 2015 Pharmalink conference. But let me show you first what those 3 root drivers are. So they are enterprise-wide collaboration. And what we mean by that is enterprise-wide quality ownership would include the integration of quality and collaboration across all functional areas and processes. The second theme that was coming out from these opinions of the thought leaders was leadership buy-in. So companies need a leadership team that is bought in to their quality culture. And then the third theme that came out of those opinions was designed in at the source. Companies need to assure quality at the source by designing quality in. Now, what's interesting is if you follow the Schelling Point methodology, you would stop here and dissect each of these 3 root drivers word by word. And so if I look at the last one, designed in at the source, I would say, well, what do we mean by the source? What do we mean by quality? What do we mean by assure? You know, are you going to stand there and watch and walk next to the person, or, you know, how do you assure that? The source was very interesting. Some of us, me included, thought, well, if you're designing quality in at the source, we're talking about early stage development and research and development. Someone else was thinking, well, it's human resources. You bring in the right person at the right time with the right qualifications. Both answers are absolutely correct, and there were as many tables that we had talking about this. There were that many different definitions of what the source meant. So that's very important to make sure you understand what these words actually mean that we all take for granted. But once we started doing that, we were able to say, okay, well, how would you measure that? Or what would you look for in action to understand if that was occurring? So by dissecting these themes, we then were able to come up with the action items. So back to our map, that's where you'll see then where it says translate text to measures. We were able to identify 26 measurable actions, and we put that into the 2016 Pharmalink pilot study, which included 489 industry members and 22 organizations. So what are these action items? Under the enterprise-wide collaboration, we had several action items that we said we could see in action, and one is that the company's personnel have shared cross-functional objectives to improve quality. Another one is personnel possess sufficient incentives to collaborate cross-functionally on quality improvement. The third one, personnel effectively collaborate across functions to improve quality. The fourth one, the company performance management process includes 360-degree cross-functional influence on performance against quality-related objectives. The fifth one is the company is responsive to assessments of itself from external partners through vehicles such as two-way scorecards, partner contract complaints, or other mechanisms. The sixth one was there is sufficient bi-directional involvement from cross-functional groups on quality-related objectives. The seventh, quality objectives are cascaded through the company's entire organization, top to bottom and across functional areas, and performance is rolled all the way up. The eighth, there is strong alignment of expectations between the company and their partners, including alignment between the supplier agreement and the quality agreement. The ninth, the company's non-quality leaders report their own quality numbers, assess trends, and resolve issues. The 10th, the company personnel are self-reporting issues through self-audit. The next theme was related to leadership buy-in practices. There were a number related to sufficient investments. So there are sufficient investments in IT systems that reduce quality risk, employees needed in the quality function, equipment maintenance necessary to reduce product quality risk, improvement projects designed to reduce quality-related risk, quality-related improvement projects. Number 16, the company's quality projects are sufficiently proactive rather than just reactive. Number 17, the company is actually spending the budget it allocates to quality improvement. And you might remember this one from the slide I was showing with the colors, where 100% of the employees of that company said, yeah, we kind of are. Number 18 is the company's leadership are familiar enough with the everyday operations in my area to know the challenges, needs that have been expressed, and areas of opportunity for improvement. And again, I discussed this on the slide that had the different colors and the gradients. What was interesting is number 18 actually came from the team saying it's important that the leadership team or the leaders are involved in Gemba walks. And we said, well, what do we mean by Gemba walks? What's so important about that? Because we know that the pharmaceutical and medical device industries did not quite adopt the intent of Gemba walks the way they were done in the auto industry. So we said, well, what we mean is that they can actually walk through the operations and understand what I'm doing, know what my challenges are, and really actually understand what's going on. So that's how we tore apart those words and came up with what could you actually see in action. Number 19, the company's leadership listen without retribution to employees who bring them quality ideas, suggestions, and concerns. The company's leadership is sufficiently acting on quality ideas, suggestions, and concerns. The company's executives attend quality meetings and or participate in an effective escalation process. We thought that, the biggest of the biggest companies, your CEO is not going to be sitting in on your quality meeting, but do you have the right escalation process to get the right people involved when needed? The company's most recent employee survey illustrates strong corporate buy-in to quality improvement. The company's most recent employee survey illustrates strong enterprise, not corporate, but enterprise buy-in to quality improvement. And then the last theme was designing quality in at the source. So the company strives for right first time in all operations, including activities such as product development, supplier selection, whether you're writing SOPs, no matter what it is, everything you're doing, you're trying to do it right the first time. Number 25, there are sufficient policies, procedures, models, and leadership support to enable the company employees to strive for right first time in all operations. And the last one is there is a feedback loop change management process in place that leads to continuous quality improvement when needed. So these were the actions that were identified by the thought leaders that you would need to see in place for a company that demonstrates a commitment to quality. Okay, and so now we wanted to put it into the pilot. As I mentioned, we used the 2016 Pharmalink conference to pilot the study, and the question was, how strongly do I believe these 26 practices are in place and are functional in my company? So they looked at all 26 actions, and this is a roll-up of all of those responses. So again, there were 489 participants, which included all different levels of leadership and 22 organizations that came from different perspectives. So the first example, how strongly do I believe these 26 practices are in place and are functional in my company? When you look at all the data from the person who was responding, what their leadership level was, we saw that the sentiment went anywhere from 34 to -3, and it was interesting that 34 was the most senior leader saying that, yes, these are in place and they are functional, down to the people who are on the floor saying, no, not really. So even if the senior leaders were right, let's say they were right and everyone else was wrong, you can see that the actual endorsement range in black is far below the target endorsement range. So even the senior leaders weren't responding strongly enough to say that, yes, we are actually doing this effectively. So once we looked at the management level, we thought, well, we could take it down to another level and look at the 26 action items. We were able to tag those as some of them were strategy and governance, some of them were processes and procedures, some were culture and organization, and some were tools and infrastructure. So when we looked at the categories of questions, we still saw that same kind of degradation of agreement and alignment as you go down from senior leaders to the shop floor. So it seemed to carry through no matter what the category of question was. When we looked at cultural attributes, we tagged the 26 action items with different cultural attributes, such as, you know, this particular action is related to designing quality in, this one's integration of quality, this one's quality ownership, collaboration, leadership listening skills, commitment of leadership, and leadership investment in quality. So when we looked at the data that we had seen previously by leadership level, when we looked at it per cultural attribute, you could see the one that got the highest sentiment of doing it well was designing quality in. Leadership investment in quality was the worst at -3. So again, none of them scored high enough to be in what you would actually try to target. I personally found it interesting that designing quality in was the highest, because I was thinking maybe that scored the highest because I can actually control that. I can do it. I can design quality in. I can try to do things right first time with everything I personally do. So I don't know for sure, but it is interesting when you look at the scores. The three themes that we had talked about: designed in at the source got the highest sentiment, then enterprise-wide collaboration, then leadership buy-in. And certainly all of them are well below the target range. The functional area, it was interesting that regulatory affairs had the highest sentiment that things were functional in their company and in place, where quality had the lowest score. As they're looking at, well, I feel that it should actually be a whole lot better. And again, that none of the scores were anywhere near the target range. I like this example as well because you're looking across companies. So you have a brand pharma company, a device company, a service company, a contract manufacturer, all different kinds of companies. And we took, these are the scores from the quality demographic. So people who are in the quality organization, what you can see is really no company is any better than another. So it's not like, oh, branded pharma, they're always the best. You can see they were the best and the worst. But just looking at how quality felt about the actions that were identified by the thought leaders as, you know, you need to have these actions in place to demonstrate that you have a commitment to quality. You can see how the quality organizations within these companies felt about their company's commitment to quality. So as you look at those 26 action items, you might think, well, you know, these are pretty simple questions, or this is obvious, or why would that be important? You can see that it really starts to tease out the fact that things are not being done in action, even if they were, I guess, dreamt up or theoretically in place. And in many companies, some of those action items aren't even in place. So the power of this assessment is through the system itself, where you take it from the interview process to providing the evidence so that others can understand, and you weed out the misunderstandings. You take it to developing a mitigation roadmap so that it is something that the clients can have in their hand and take forward and actually experience a return on investment. All the surveys that are done over and over again for every company lead to taking action on things that aren't even understood. So people were interpreting the words differently. It was based on feeling. It was based on emotion. There was no evidence. There were misunderstandings, and yet they're building mitigation plans, and after a year or two, they're looking back and saying, why isn't anything different? So the power of this system to move an organization from point A to point Z is fantastic, and the return on investment will definitely be experienced.